Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bodybuilding and Steroids Podcast. I'm here with my friend Evan Quinn today. Evan's a bodybuilder. He's done some training with me on and off. He also is doing a fitness coaching business, and he's been appearing on a few different podcasts lately. And he's a guy who's really not afraid to say what's on his mind, and I've always enjoyed working with him. So I'd like to welcome Evan.
Yeah, what's up, Dan? Appreciate you getting me on here. Really just honored to talk to you face to face and everything. It's a really good experience, man.
Yeah. So first, I wanted to ask you, how's your bodybuilding going right now?
So it's going really well. So right now I'm not doing any kind of like big bulks or cuts. I'm kind of just trying to, I hate using the term main gain, but just trying to stay around, 10% body fat, at around 190, 195 pounds, and just making like those kind of smaller improvements. But I mean, my strength is the highest it's ever been right now. It's pretty insane. Squat, bench, deadlift, everything.
Cool. So I wanted to ask, what lifts are your favorite lifts, or what lifts have contributed to the size that you've built up over the years the most?
Yeah, so I would say, so naturally, I was always like a strength trainer. Like I always loved the barbell movements. That was what I grew up on. It was what I like to train with. But as I kind of got like into more advanced levels, I found the bench press for me was a fucking terrible movement. I think we were even working together when I almost like tore my pec on the barbell press. Yeah, I've always remember that. Yeah, press, I've always had issues with it. So the barbell squat, deadlift, and row, I'm completely fine with that. I built a lot of my size using those. But I made the switch to the Smith machine press, the flat Smith machine press, and this is the biggest my chest has ever been. Awesome. I connect really well to it. Yeah, so it's really those four.
So that's what you're focusing now. All the typical exercises, free weight exercises for getting big, for mass, getting strong on them worked, but you had one where for your body, you needed a variation of it, so you went ahead and used the Smith machine instead.
Exactly.
And what weights did you notice that the Smith machine has a good muscle building effect? Because I see some people on the Smith machine, I'll see them doing 135 pounds or something like that, just a standard thing. Yeah. And I don't see them getting too far. So for you to get, nice big gains out of the Smith machine like that, what did it take?
So it definitely took some baseline level of pressing strength before I even got to the Smith machine, right? So, I was doing bench presses, even though I wasn't really using my chest so much. I was still getting my bench press up, 275 for, sets of, 6 to 8, something like that. But to really see the growth from the Smith machine, it's well over 3 plates, right?
Yeah, so you're doing Smith machine bench with more than 315 pounds, 3 plates per set.
Exactly, yeah, for like multiple sets and everything. But I feel like, the guys that are doing, they don't build up the baseline strength first. They just go on the Smith machine and they're doing 135 and they don't really get anywhere with it.
Yeah. When I go to a commercial gym, that's what I see is I see the same thing that I've always seen, which is everybody at the cables, everybody at the machines. And then probably the easiest equipment to get at a busy gym is the squat racks and the bench press and maybe the deadlift platform or something like that. These the cable machine seems to be the one where you've almost got to wait in a line to use it. And that's the one for these guys that are still looking to gain mass. You know, they're kind of smaller mass size. They got to stay away from those cables like the plague.
Right. And it's interesting to see what these guys are doing because they're doing something very different from the bodybuilders. They're doing like the cable stuff, they're doing the Smith machine stuff, and they're not really going to failure, and they're kind of just doing the same weights every week. And it's like I've been going to my gym for a long time, so I see the same people and they look exactly the fucking same every year.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'm sure that you recognized early on was that you have to be lifting different weights than you were last year in order to continue progressing.
100%, yeah. Like, you know, with the Smith machine press, it's like, you know, I'm not really just using that as like a pump up exercise. It's like I'm actively trying to get strong as shit at that exercise. Like every single week, I'm trying to add 5 pounds. I'm trying to add a set. I'm trying to do like an intensifier. Like I used to train with a training partner who would literally just like we would do drop sets on the Smith machine press, and we would just do like, you know, once we got to 135, we would be banging out force reps, and he'd just be like literally lifting the weight. So I'm training my fucking ass off on the Smith machine, and nobody else is doing that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see. It's hardcore, very intense. Another thing that I've seen you doing is really intense deadlift sets with super heavy weight for a lot of reps, like a lot of reps. Just tell us about your deadlift, where you're at, and how that's affected your overall training.
Yeah. So I would say one of the best things I've done for my deadlift, and like I'm a very strong deadlifter, keep this in mind. So I'm, you know, I'm 190 pounds. So, you know, the weights I'm doing, it says a lot for that body weight. I'm deadlifting.
Let us know how much you're doing.
So first of all, I'm deadlifting twice a month and only doing 2 sets of deadlifts a month. So right now my deadlift is about 545 for a set of 10.
Okay.
So I just did that the other day. So it's if I was to do a 1 rep max, it would be well into the high sixes if I had to guess.
And I've seen you doing like five plates for 15 reps, I think, or so, right?
I think my max was 13 for 5 reps
with 5 plates. Okay, yeah.
So, you know, it's like once you get to a certain point, the deadlifts are just so fucking taxing.
Yeah.
Like you can only, if you're strong, you can only recover from, you know, a couple heavy sets. So I'm doing on my back day 1 week where I'll do a barbell row, like a heavy barbell row for a lot of sets. And then 1 week I'm doing just one heavy set of deadlifts and just kind of alternating those two. And that's worked the best for me.
Okay. And has the barbell row helped your deadlift or vice versa?
I believe so. I believe so. And I mean, the way I'm doing it, I'm almost using like a little bit of like momentum or body English. So I'm still getting like, it's still somewhat of a hip hinge. So I think they both coincide with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some really cool variations of the barbell row because that's another one that like you don't see people doing the exercise.
Right.
It's very rare to see people doing the barbell row, but it's probably the most effective exercise for getting a big freaky back. But there's some really cool variations of it, like the one from the floor where you start every rep from the floor, from a dead stop on the floor, and do like an explosive power deadlift or power row. That one works really well for improving the deadlift.
Yeah, like I think it's the Pendlay row, right? That's what you're talking about.
Kind of like a Pendlay row, yeah, but like more powerful because the Pendlay you keep your back parallel to the ground, and so it's hard to lift much weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's go over what steroids you used then. So what was your first cycle?
So my first cycle before I even like knew about you or anybody else. So this was back in probably 2019. So this is back in my, you know, fraternity days where I was, you know, partying and doing stupid shit, you know, what a early 20s guy would be doing. My first cycle ever was 250 milligrams of testosterone, like nothing else besides that.
Just 1 milliliter of test a week.
1 milliliter test a week. So it was 2 shots of enanthate.
And a half cc twice a week.
Half cc twice.
Exactly. Okay. You're like, oh, this is some crazy stuff.
And I remember watching. I think it was like I got that advice from it was like a Tony Huge video, and I watched it, and he was like, "Oh, that's all you need. Just take 250 tests." I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" So I try it out, and I'm like, "Okay." So I was about 160 pounds. I didn't gain any weight on that cycle. I stayed 160 pounds. I got a little bit leaner. I got a little bit stronger. I got, you know, gained a little bit of muscle. So basically just a long-term kind of body recomposition. Yeah. But I was very underwhelmed with the results. And I was like, oh, well, this is what steroids do? Like, That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember, so it was 2020, so then we had the bullshit fucking COVID lockdown or whatever. And then so I couldn't go to the gym, and I found your content, and I downloaded your ebook, Ultimate Guide to Roids, and I read that shit cover to cover like 3 times, and I was like, this makes sense. This is why I wasn't getting the results. And
Okay.
I was like, I would like plan my cycle for when I was out of the lockdown. And then immediately after we got out and the gyms were open, I just said, fuck it. I like tripled my testosterone. I think I was taking like 650 or something like that. I added in dihydroboldenone at the
Uh-huh.
same dose. I added in 50 mgs of D-ball. And
Okay.
then all of a sudden, everything just started working better. Like I actually
Yeah.
started looking like a bodybuilder. My strength went through the roof. And I'm like, this is what steroids are supposed to do, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Okay.
at
So
the
that must have
time,
been
I
fun.
thought it was, yeah. Huh?
That must have been fun.
What's that? Oh, that was
Because when you go into the gym like that, uh, the strength that you've got and getting stronger every week basically is what that feels like, right?
right. Right. Like nothing could ever replicate that first cycle feeling. And like the recomposition I got, like I got leaner and gained like 10 pounds or something. Like nothing could replicate that. And like, I remember I think that was the first time I ever pulled, it was like 6 plates in my life on that
Mhm.
cycle. And I was like, this is what steroids are supposed to do. And at the
Okay.
time I
So
thought I
that
was
was
doing
fast.
something
Your deadlift just shot up as soon as you started taking
shot up. Um, and it was like I thought it was doing some like crazy like shit that nobody else was doing at the time. But then I like started talking to like other people that were doing the same shit, and I'm like, oh, this is actually not even that much that I'm taking.
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. So it was all like perception, I felt like I was kind of lied to when I first started that 250 test cycle of what that was supposed to do.
Yeah. So that so I've watched you as you've gotten bigger, gotten stronger, and everything. And one thing that I noticed was a turning point for you in what your physique looked like was when you started using human growth hormone.
Yes, exactly. So I believe like we worked together when we first did that first growth hormone cycle.
Hmm.
And it was the genotropin pens. I remember that. So I think that cycle, the full cycle was, I think it was 900 mgs a test, like 600 EQ, 600 Primo, 50 Winstrol, and then we added in the 4 IUs of Pharmagrade growth hormone with T4 thyroxine,
Yeah.
and that was probably the most productive growing phase I ever did. That was the first
Okay.
time I reached over 200 pounds. It was insane.
Hmm. So the growth hormone helped you get heavier.
Oh yeah, 100%. Heavier. I felt like I could eat more food and stay leaner on it.
Okay.
Sleep was incredible, anything like that. Just like overall recovery was better. I didn't feel like I was going to get injured. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And did
did
you
we did I cut off there?
it cut out a little bit, but yeah, did you lose fat
Yeah.
while that was happening as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's overall just stayed leaner, gain size.
And the other thing that it seems to help a lot with is bringing up weak points. So I know that we were discussing bench press earlier, and so everybody's got weak points.
Right.
And so for you, the chest would be the part that you've got to focus on the most in order to bring that up. And so did the growth hormone help with being able to get weak points to be able to match other muscles more easily?
I definitely saw that. I definitely saw that because like it was interesting. So before I started the growth hormone, it was like my chest. I got strong at the chest movements, but it never really seemed to catch up with the other body parts. And I've
Mhm.
always had like dominant shoulders and legs, and the chest was just kind of like sunken in. I'm like, I don't really know how to fix this. And then the second week we threw that in, it started to all kind of come together.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is cool how the growth hormone can kind of be like a missing link that
Right,
helps you fill in
right.
things that you
It's
don't naturally have.
it's a major plateau buster, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Plateau buster. That's a good way to call it. Um, okay. So if you right now, if you could have testosterone and one other hormone to help you for the rest of your bodybuilding career, uh, attain your goals, what would those two be? What are the most two important hormones to you? Testosterone and what else?
So say testosterone and Primobolan, 100%.
Okay, so it's Primobolan for you.
It's Primobolan, yeah. So like, Primobolan, it's very low side effect. Like I don't even feel like I'm taking anything when I take Primobolan. It doesn't convert into any estrogen, so I don't get any side effects with it. I mean, I'm not a very high converter,
Mhm.
regardless. Like I don't aromatize a lot, but it will still, I don't get acne on it. I feel good. I stay, I have a good appetite, and I can run it for a really long time, which is really good.
Yeah,
So, I always tell people, like doing like short cycles and then like coming off and PCTing, it's never really the optimal approach. You want to find something where you can run, you want to find compounds that you can run for a good amount of time and have good exposure to these anabolics. So I
yeah,
found Test and Primo was perfect for that. I could run that easily for 8 months and stay healthy.
yeah. You do pretty long cycles. I've noticed that, and
Right.
that's part of it because bodybuilders don't like to be off cycle.
No.
So,
That's just the opposite.
so if we've got serious bodybuilders who are putting a lot into it, they're not going to be spending a lot of time off cycle. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Um, yeah. So with Primobolan and testosterone, what kind of dosages work for you?
So testosterone, so I have gone up over a gram. But keep in mind, I'm also not, over 200 pounds. I'm 5'6", 190 pounds. So for me, 750 is actually a perfect dose.
Okay.
And I stay really full on it. It's what I feel the best on. And then Primobolan, I match it up with about the same dose. So
Okay.
usually like a 1-to-1 ratio is perfect.
Yeah, that works really good like that. I like that
Yeah.
too. Testosterone and Primobolan at the same dose. So
Yeah.
some people are worried about uh, Primobolan crashing their estrogen. If you look online, there's a lot of hype about that. Have you ever had any problems with that? Because you said you're not a high aromatizer. You're someone who doesn't create a lot of estrogen, and you run kind of like a higher dose of Primobolan. So do you have any problems with crashed estrogen?
Right. So yeah, like keep in mind, like, when I was running tests and D-ball and stuff, so I never took an AI ever.
Hmm.
And when I did, I felt like shit when I took it. I felt like, low energy, crashed libido, everything. So I am very sensitive to that. So Primo never crashed my estrogen, never had problems with it. Equipoise, on the other hand, did. Like if I ran at the same ratio, I would feel the same, almost the same as if I took like a letrozole or like an Arimidex.
Yeah. Well, that's not surprising though, because the one of the metabolites of boldenone is in AI that's almost identical to exemestane. So
Right.
yeah. So you experienced that. I've noticed with a lot of younger guys, like in their early 20s, especially if guys have like problems with like acne or something. Acne is the big one because estrogen is so important with creating acne in young guys and bodybuilders. So if somebody guy is he's in his early 20s and he's taking steroids and his skin is just like a war zone, like total disaster, a
Yeah.
lot of times testing equipoise at equal dosages can be the only thing that they can take and it'll resolve their issues.
Right. Yeah, no, I had big problems with acne when I first started my cycles. So I don't know if it was really an estrogen thing or if it was just something else, but it was something I actually had to use Accutane, like prescribed by a doctor to get rid of.
Okay.
I still have some scars to this day, but I do agree with that. Yeah. If I had to go back and do things better, I probably would have done, test in EQ or test in Primo, as my base cycles.
Yeah. So with the acne, since you had that before, and then how old are you now?
So I'm 26.
26. Okay. Yeah. And so are you still dealing with that or did you grow out of it?
So I pretty much grew out of it. I mean, there's still some scars. Like if I lift up my shirt right here, there on my chest in the middle and everything on my back. But as far as like new acne, I don't really see so much of it.
Okay. All right. And then what's your ultimate goal with bodybuilding? Because I've seen you post you're pretty active on Instagram. And so you post some funny videos on Instagram. You're not afraid of hate. That's what I've seen. Is that you're almost like baiting haters to come and talk to you. So um, yeah, let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So as far as like competing and everything, so I don't see myself competing. I've
Okay.
done one show and I almost enjoyed the prep more than I did the actual stepping on stage part.
Okay.
Like I like the process. I like training. I like dieting. So like I really just see myself, like just maintaining like a good bodybuilder physique and just kind of living life like that, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people that take gear and use steroids, like just like your average gym guy that uses steroids, they're kind of after the same thing. It's actually rare to see, like a competitor in your gym, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But there are some, definitely. I think a
Oh yeah,
lot of times when we see the most extreme physiques, we almost just assume like, oh, that must be a competitor.
right. Like I'll have guys like come up to me at my gym and they're like, "Oh, when's the next show?" I'm like, "I'm not competing. Like, this is just how I live my life."
Uh-huh. Well, you keep
Yeah,
a low body fat year round, right? I mean, you've always got a six pack, so under 10%.
yeah. So I mean, just like genetically, I think I stay relatively lean, but I always like to keep my body fat below 12%. Even if I'm doing like a big like bulking phase. And right now it's like I don't see myself doing another massive bulking phase at least for a while. This is just kind of like what I like to stay at right now and just focusing on just getting stronger and improving weak areas.
Yeah. So for guys that say you have to be a competitor to be a bodybuilder, what do you say to that?
So that's
What's your
bullshit.
opinion? Okay.
That's fucking bullshit. So, there's so many benefits to having like a good, like, well-rounded bodybuilding physique, right? It opens so many doors and people just like seem to just respect you more in
Yeah.
business and relationships and everywhere. So, and we know what's required to get that physique. It's not going to happen naturally. So to tell somebody they can't take somebody that or they can't take something that's going to give them the physique they want, it's like, who the fuck is anybody to say that?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like you're pretty confident in that then, because the kind of stuff that you'll post on the Instagram too is that you'll just post stuff and it's good stuff that you're posting, but then you get these haters, and these haters, online, a lot of people are afraid of haters because everybody that's doing stuff online making content, this is one of the things that you've got to accept is that you're going to have these like evil people who like want you dead basically, or at least talk like that, and you're going to have them entering into your life like these little annoying monkeys, batting on a cage trying to get your attention. Okay, but you seem to be comfortable with it, and they seem to hit you with things that may be hurtful for some people, because they'll come at your insecurities. Maybe they'll say like, oh, you're short, or they might say your chest doesn't look good enough, or you're not aesthetic, or something like that. So how do you take all those kind of insults and not let that affect you?
So keep in mind, like one of the biggest insult or one of the biggest like hits to a bodybuilder's ego is telling them that they can achieve that physique naturally, right?
Okay.
Or like so I can get that physique if I didn't take gear or whatever. You look like shit for being on gear. So people understand that, and they're gonna try to hit you with those insecurities. So one thing that my business mentor, he tells me, because I work with a business mentor for my page, he tells me you can't, like, you almost have to have like a cult following. You have to have people, like, if you're liked by everybody, you're never going to be successful. So you have to have half the people heavily fuck with your stuff, then half the people absolutely hate you and wish the worst for you. And
Uh-huh.
that's the ideal situation. We want that.
Uh-huh.
So, and I almost think of it as like, okay, like the more comments I get, obviously the more engagement I get on my posts, and the better I can do, obviously. But then it's also, you have to realize where these people are coming from too. They're coming from a very insecure, almost like bad place, and they're projecting those insecurities on you. And once you understand that, you almost like feel bad for them, at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Okay. So you keep that in mind while
Oh,
you're receiving their comments.
right.
So that's how you're able to insulate yourself from being affected by hate mail, hate comments.
So I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't affect me like a little bit,
Okay.
because it does to some extent. Like obviously you see a comment that hits you a little bit too hard, and it's like, oh shit. And then
Maybe you need 5 minutes to regroup.
yeah. I'm going to my chest day, and I'm like, oh well, this guy just fucking called my chest small. I'm gonna hit this fucking chest workout even harder. So yeah, so I mean that's kind of how I deal with it. But yeah, it's some of them do hit me a little bit harder, but you learn to cope with it, right? And you
Yeah.
understand like it can actually benefit you in benefiting your page, your business, your bodybuilding, everything.
It's great to hear because a lot of people are interested in, maybe putting some kind of content up and doing something like that. And, a lot of people have big concerns about the hater thing. That's a big mental block for them from doing something because they don't want that kind of energy in their life. That's good hearing how you handle it. All right. So another thing I wanted to talk about is your dieting because Evan is a stickler for diet. So he is on a diet. Like, if you ask bodybuilders, like, do you have a diet? A lot of bodybuilders are going to say no. They don't have like a diet plan that they're following. But, Evan has always had a diet plan and it's regimented, like meals at times and bodybuilding meals all day long. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so the like I would say diet is like 90% of this whole thing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, the steroids come number one because without the steroids, you don't have the hormonal environment to make everything else work. But the diet is still 100% because it literally tells your body what you're composed of. So what I'm doing right now to basically stay at around 190, 195, 10% body fat is so on my training days I'll have a good amount of, I would say a very good amount of carbohydrates, anywhere from 400 to 500 grams.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm structuring most of those around my training window. And then and this is actually something that I learned from you, way back in the day was, having one energy source per meal.
Okay.
So it's either a protein carb meal or a protein fat meal.
Mhm.
So around the workout window, so let's say 2 hours before my workout, I'm having my chicken and jasmine rice, or fish and jasmine rice or something, and then I have fuel for that workout. And I get into the workout and I'm having the intra workout dextrose shake, creatine, EAAs. When I'm doing like my massive pump work and stuff towards the workout, I'm really slamming that down, and I'm getting a massive pump. Just huge insulin spike, driving the nutrients into the muscle where they where you want them to be when you're getting a pump. And then once I finish the workout, I'm going back to the chicken jasmine rice to replenish. And then
Mhm.
the rest of that day, I'm not really having so many carbs. Maybe I'll have one more carb meal, but most of them are just protein fats or protein in veggies or protein in fruit, something like that.
So
Um,
you kept the starch carbs and like for example the dextrose or whatever. You kept those very concentrated around the workout, and then you're saying as the day goes on, you're moving more towards like fruit and stuff for your carbs.
exactly. So yeah, fruit or vegetables, something like that. Something that's not I don't want to have like a big plate of jasmine rice, right before I go to bed because I want that time to just, while I'm sleeping, just to, reset insulin sensitivity and everything like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, most of those carbs are just are just condensed around that workout window.
Yeah, so that's one thing I've noticed is that you're a lot of times you'll do one meal per day that will just be fat and protein. And I'll see like on your Instagram, I'll see like 8 eggs or something, and that'll be your breakfast.
Right.
So that's since you're a guy with a fast metabolism, and you want to keep a good muscle fullness. I think you have to eat a high amount of carbohydrates. That's one of the requirements with your body. But you were talking about insulin sensitivity because I know that's one thing that you've struggled with is keeping a high insulin sensitivity. But you were talking about extending that window from when you go to sleep or when you wake up with one meal extra that has no carbohydrates in it, so you can have that longer time without having the insulin receptor being stimulated.
Exactly. Exactly. And then this is actually something I've been doing recently too, is having, zero carbs on my rest day and just, really just spiking up the protein and fats because I do have a fast metabolism. So I do need to, keep the calories still high on that day. But it's all coming from steak, eggs, trying to think what else, avocados, mostly that just for that day. And that's a whole day where I'm basically just, not producing a whole lot of insulin and just getting way more sensitive. So when I reintroduce the carbs on that next day, I'm filling right back out.
Okay. And then another thing I wanted to talk to you about was bloating, because that's another one that especially guys that are big, because you've obviously let us know that your mass and size and strength is important to you. So you're not lifting the kind of weights that these aesthetics guys are lifting. And so for a lot of guys that are doing what it takes to get to that bigger muscle mass level like that, there can be a lot of bloating that comes with it. You can like the face especially can be bloated, but it can also be other parts of the body too. So you struggled with that, and how have you worked through that?
Yeah, so I would say, for if you want like, a bodybuilder physique, again, not like these aesthetics guys, you are gonna have at some point you're gonna have to deal with some bloating because you need to gain size and you need to
Mhm.
have carbohydrates and insulin on board to gain that size. And as we know, the insulin is going to, hold more sodium in the kidneys and you're going to retain more water to account for that electrolyte balance. So you're gonna have to hold some water and your face at some point is going to look round and whatever, and there's no real way around it.
Yeah.
But what I did to control it was, like I said, just having that those times in the day where I'm not having so many carbohydrates. Now that I have the size that I want, it's easier to maintain the size now. So, there's times of the day where I'm not having a lot of carbs. It's reducing the bloating. I have a whole day on my rest day where I'm not having the insulin on board. So it helped a whole lot just doing that. Also, the berberine and cinnamon, which you
Yeah.
recommended around the carbohydrate meals, really helped with that.
Insulin sensitizers.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, so another one I wanted to ask you about was your squatting. So I've seen some hardcore squatting videos from you. Um, 4 plates for reps, below parallel. What goes through your mind when you're doing that?
I'm just trying not to die. I'm like it's there's almost like, once you get to a certain point in the squat, it's almost like you're fear like I go into my leg day almost like fearing death. Like I don't know if I'm
Uh,
gonna come out of that leg day tearing a quad or collapsing the bar. So
so
it's
you're nervous before you get into the gym on leg day.
like that whole drive to the gym, I'm like almost like shaking.
Uh,
Um, and it's like, I mean, I enjoy the barbell squat so much, and I know how much it's benefited my legs. Where it's like I know it's something that I have to do.
okay.
When I'm doing that set, it's like sometimes I'll have a spotter, sometimes I don't have a spotter. So when I don't have a spotter, I'll maybe take my set, like 1 rep short of failure just to make sure, I don't lose form and drop the bar or something. But when I do have a spotter, we're pushing out force reps where he's, right under my arms and just kind of lifting me up. Like it's like I can't describe what's going through my head. It's basically just black.
Yeah.
Everything blacks out and it's just like, I'm just trying like to finish that set, and just, I don't even think of anything. It's like tunnel vision when I'm doing that.
And why are you willing to put yourself through something so terrible like that? A lot of people hear what you're saying right now and think, I don't want to do
Right. Well, just sounds like you don't want big legs. like, like I know what's required, and really
that.
like the training intensity. It's like this was like a given. Like the first day I stepped in the gym before I even took gear or whatever, my first day in the gym, I knew what I had to do because I played sports, throughout high school and stuff. So I had coaches that would push me through like conditioning workouts and stuff. So this wasn't like a foreign thing to me.
Okay.
So I knew just from day one that's how hard I had to train.
For physical excellence, you have to go all
Exactly.
out. You
Exactly.
knew that from sports.
Exactly. And it's like we said before, it's a clear difference, what people like us are doing in the gym, making noise, grunting, not looking super cool or whatever. And then you have the other side where it's like they're taking pictures, they're doing their bicep curls, bench press with 135, and it's like, yeah, you can look cool doing that, but it's like your physique isn't going to look super good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that if you even take like 2 weeks off of the gym, uh, getting back into that extreme hardcore lifting like that, doing the squats like you're talking about, is like, oh my God. Like even just taking a little bit of time off makes it so difficult to do it again. It's like one of those things you got to stay in the groove.
Right. So, I mean, one of the things I actually had to like stop myself from doing because so my legs, as they're already pretty developed.
Mhm.
So I don't train my legs, with super high like intensity drop sets, supersets, whatever. I don't do that anymore. And I actually do that more for like my chest and the part and my biceps, the body parts that I needed
Yeah.
for, just to enhance the recovery. So, if I had to go back to, doing crazy drop sets on squats, crazy drop sets on the leg press, that level of intensity, it would probably take me a little bit to get back into it.
Yeah. I see. So since your legs are like a genetically strong body part, is that
I would say so, yeah. Yeah.
okay? Yeah. And so and then you train them hard in addition to that. So other than the squat, what is the second exercise that has been the biggest contributor to the size there?
So I would say, so I mean, my leg training has always been very, very basic. It's been a squat, it's been a leg press, and it's been a leg extension. And I
Okay.
train those three just extremely, extremely hard. Um, but one of the things that really brought up my legs was actually swapping out the normal decline leg press, you know, the one that everybody has in their gym, to actually the hammer strength hip press. So that's like the horizontal leg press where in the pad almost like moves with your ankles.
Mhm.
So for me, I don't have very good ankle mobility, so it allows me to get super super deep, and I also don't need to take like 10 minutes loading up the plates on it because you can get a lot out of 3 4 plates on
Yeah.
each side, and that's really really worked. And I can also go to failure safely on it because again it's horizontal, so it just like stops if you can't move it. Versus the other
Okay.
one just comes like crashing down if you don't lift it up. So it makes me more comfortable going into failure for those sets.
Yeah, so that is a big advantage of machines too, is because after you've spent yourself on the free weights like the squat, then it can be like not safe to continue with free weights while going at that kind of intensity. And so
Yeah.
that's the perfect time to bring machines into it. That sounds like what you're doing.
Yeah, like I had an incident with the so it was like this was a couple months ago. So after I got off the squats, I did 3 sets of like really high intensity squats. I go on the leg press and I loaded up 9 plates on each side. So I look at my logbook and I say, okay, well last week I got 19 reps with 9 plates. Now I'm gonna try to get 20.
Yeah.
So I got 19 and a half, and it comes halfway up, and then all of a sudden quads completely give out. Whole thing comes crashing down. I thought I was gonna tear a quad.
Yeah. Because it's going to crush you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I train at a really grungy, like, bodybuilding gym with old equipment. So there's no safety on the leg press.
Yeah.
It's coming crashing down if it doesn't if you don't lift it up.
Oh man.
So instead of it, tearing my quad, it just slingshotted me back up in the bench. So I was safe. I was like, okay, I'm never using that again.
That's unexpected.
I got too strong.
That was a really good scenario. Like it's
Yeah,
really great that it slingshotted you out rather than crushing
yeah.
you.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I wasn't sure if I was gonna, like end up in the fucking ambulance or something. It was scary. It was fucking scary.
Yeah, well, I guess that was a growth set, man. You freaking eat like 5,000 calories after you got home.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a thing too. Is that has any like weird unorthodox methods worked for you for gaining size? Because sometimes there can be some things like going to McDonald's
Oh,
or doing some kind of kooky stuff. You know, like one of the kooky things that I kind of brought in or talked about was that I like to eat the Haribo bears a lot, and those help me get big. So, is there any like kind of like weird stuff like that helped you?
yeah. So when we worked together with for the growth hormone cycle, the one I was talking about, so where we reached, I think it was the max weight was 202 pounds in the scale. So every other day I was eating. I don't know if they have Shake Shack. And if you're
Yeah,
ever
they've
it's
got. I know Shake Shack. Yeah.
like so every other day, my last meal of the day was going to Shake Shack. It was getting two double burgers with no cheese because I can't tolerate cheese.
Uh-huh.
And then it was fries, like 2 fries, and then a like a milkshake. And
Yeah,
that was my post workout meal every day,
3,000 calorie
every other
meal.
day. Yeah, exactly. And that was what I had to do. And the growth hormone in T4 was just keeping me so fucking lean, where I was just burning right through that.
Okay. Okay. So that was helping you get big. That was what was helping you get big and strong.
Exactly, yeah. And then obviously the rest of the diet was just like, clean food, chicken, rice, vegetables, whatever. But it was that one meal where I just needed it to
Yeah.
gain the size.
And that can make the difference too. That having that junk meal for the guys that are big uh, can be the difference between not gaining and gaining.
Right. Because like at a certain point, you gain so much size and it's like your basal metabolic rate is so fucking high to get 6,000 calories in of clean food is almost impossible. Like you
Yeah.
have to have some junk at that point.
And there's just something about clean food too, where it just doesn't cause weight gain. It doesn't stick the way that unclean food does. I mean, we see that with fat people everywhere too.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're like a walking, it's like a walking McDonald's on their fucking body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so any warning stories for any of these bodybuilders out here? Have you had any kind of like accidents or any kind of medical or health scares or anything like that?
So nothing like that, but I have pushed doses pretty high before,
Mhm.
and I understand how these high doses of steroids make you feel, just from an energy standpoint, from like a mental standpoint, everything like that. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but so my first time ever taking Tren, I bumped up the dose to like I titrated dose up to 1,000 milligrams.
Okay.
So it was I forget how many cc's a
Hard
week.
to
I think it
train when
was
you're taking that much. The back pumps.
it was terrible. I literally couldn't train. I was out of breath. I was getting back pumps. I was taking 75 mgs of Winstrol at the time too.
Uh-huh.
So that combined just made my training just completely just abysmal. But mentally, I felt like a wreck. I felt like I was turning myself into like a schizophrenic. Like it was just like I was getting anxiety, just overthinking everything, like and it just like generally just was not like well, like mentally on that
Okay.
dose. Yeah.
And so we hadn't heard anything about Tren before you mentioned it just now during this podcast so far. So were you at one time a pretty big Tren user?
So I still am from time to time. So I'm on trend right now too.
Okay.
My time is yeah. So right now I take trend, maybe one cycle out of the year,
Uh-huh.
for like a max 25 weeks,
And how much
um,
do you like to take?
just 350.
Okay.
So but when I was so back in my earlier days experimenting with a lot of gear and stuff, I was a big trend user. I used it every single cycle.
Okay.
And I would say a lot of the size I built was on Trenbolone,
Okay.
which is interesting. So
And like
um,
what exactly was the dosage when that size was built up? Were you using like 700 tests, 1000 Trenbolone? What were you using?
so it was mostly just about 750 tests and anywhere from 2 to 300 mgs of Trenbolone.
Okay.
Um,
And the
it,
1000 Trenbolone was just short.
that was very short lived. So I started that cycle, that first trend cycle at 350 for about 3 weeks, and then bumped it up about 200 milligrams every couple weeks just
Yeah.
to see what would happen,
Yeah.
literally for no other reason. Literally for no other reason, just experimentation.
Yeah.
Um,
Figuring out
and
the limits of
that
what these things can do for you.
exactly. And I probably lasted about 2 weeks on that 1,000 milligram dose where it just became like just like unusable. It was terrible. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to what you're doing now,
Yeah. Oh,
tell us
yes.
a little more about that.
Yeah, right now. So my cycle right now is 750 mgs of testosterone, 600 milligrams of primobolan, 350 milligrams of trenbolone acetate, so 50 mgs every day, 100 milligrams of anavar every day.
Mhm.
So I started at 50 and then I went up to 100 in the past couple of days. It would be 4 IUs of pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, Serostim, 100 micrograms of T4 thyroxine in the morning, and then 20 micrograms of clenbuterol in the morning.
Cool. So that's a comprehensive cycle. You know, you're on a lot of stuff. Bodybuilders are. They're on a lot of stuff. That's how it is. And
Right.
so do you have any blood pressure issues, or do you have any other kind of? Are you taking any ancillary medications to take care of any health problems you might have from this?
So blood pressure is perfect right now. Systolic is actually staying below 120. Uh,
With no support, you don't take anything.
so I take a blood pressure, like a natural blood pressure, like an all-in-one pill.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
it's like just like a natural supplement.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I'm doing my cardio every morning, 45-minute walk. So that kind of deals with, like any blood pressures. I mean, my diet's good. I don't eat a whole lot of shit right now. So I think that in itself is just keeping it down, even taking the Trenbolone.
Yeah, and then you do blood work frequently too, and your blood work looks good. Sometimes it's taken about a month or 5 weeks or something to
Yeah.
fix itself.
Yeah, exactly. Once you go down to a cruise, that blood work usually fixes itself in about, like you said, 4 to 5 weeks.
And so no pharmaceutical medicines that you have to take for any kind of like health side effects you have. That you're just
No,
taking roids and you don't need to take more.
I mean, if we can count Cialis for blood
Okay.
pressures,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I use it for the pumps usually, but I mean it does help. Let's not
Well,
throw
it's a
that.
good medication for a bodybuilder because it helps with prostate inflammation too, which is dribbling in
Exactly.
your pants.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, it's a great drug. It's a great drug.
Yeah. All right. Well, It was great having you on the podcast today, Evan. Thanks for being open and everything and telling us about what you're doing. What's your Instagram? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is EvanQuinnFitness. So right now I'm not on any other platform. I'm relatively new to the fitness space on Instagram.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's right now where you can follow me. But yeah, that's I think I do have a YouTube too, but that's mostly just I have a couple like educational videos on there. Usually I send them to my followers when they need them. But yeah, only those platforms for now.
Okay, cool. So we'll have a link to your Instagram profile in the podcast. So the listeners, if they want, can check out the link in the description and go to Evan's Instagram and check him out. And I want to say thanks again, Evan, for coming on the podcast and good luck
Really,
with your bodybuilding, man.
absolutely appreciate you having me on, Dan.
All right.
Yeah, take care.
All right. So that's going to be the last question for the podcast today. It was fun talking to you guys, and I'll be coming up with another episode for you guys real soon here. So make sure to go pick up Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. You know, if you just go to bodybuilderinthailand.com, it's I think it's the first article on the homepage where you can check it out and read like 20 pages. It's definitely worth it. It's my best content. You know, if you like the podcast, the book will blow you away.